You're watching David McElroy TV.
Most people sense something is wrong. They may not have language for it. They may not be able to explain it. But beneath the distractions, beneath the noise, beneath the endless scrolling and entertainment, there is a quiet unease, a feeling that something foundational has slipped. We were told we were building the most advanced civilization in history. Scientific, rational, enlightened, smarter than every generation that came before us. So, why does it all feel so fragile? For years, I believed the solution was better arguments. If something was wrong, it could be explained. If people misunderstood reality, clearer reasoning would fix it. If the culture drifted into confusion, the answer was more clarity. I grew up believing in the power of direct language and linear logic, declarative sentences, cause and effect. If something was true, you could prove it. But somewhere along the way, I began to notice that proof didn't change much. Technology expanded our ability to communicate, but it also shortened our attention span. We became consumers of fragments. Headlines, memes, outrage, performance. The culture rewarded whatever entertained and punished whatever demanded reflection. Reasoned argument began to feel like shouting into a storm. It's not that truth disappeared, it's that fewer people had the patience to pursue it. The culture shifted from an age of reason to an age of entertainment. If something cannot compete with spectacle, it struggles to survive. And beneath the spectacle, something deeper began to erode. We slowly untethered ourselves from the philosophical foundations that shaped Western civilization. Ideas about objective truth, about moral order, about human nature, about responsibility and constraint. We dismissed the past as primitive. We treated tradition as superstition. We assumed that if something was old, it must be inferior. But the past was not merely a collection of outdated customs. It was a storehouse of accumulated wisdom about what makes human beings flourish. When we stripped away that inheritance, we did not become freer, we became unmoored. Pleasure replaced meaning, expression replaced discipline, choice replaced purpose. And many of us, despite unprecedented comfort, began to feel empty. I've seen it in my own life. I've felt it in my own restlessness. You can chase pleasure for a long time before you notice it never quite satisfies. You can pursue success, approval, and distraction and still wake up with the sense that something essential is missing. You can tell yourself you're happy and still feel hollow. Meaning is heavier than happiness. It demands more, but without it, life thins out. For much of my life, I thought meaning could be delivered through explanation. I believed that if I could simply articulate the philosophical errors underneath our cultural decay, people would recognize them and adjust. But that assumption underestimated something ancient and powerful. The wisdom of earlier generations was rarely transmitted as abstract argument. It was carried through story. Across cultures and centuries, human beings told the same stories in different forms. Stories of sacrifice, of temptation, of pride and collapse, of redemption, of fathers and sons, of order wrestled from chaos. When you study comparative mythology, as though Joseph Campbell did, you begin to see the pattern. When you read Carl Jung, you encounter the idea that these recurring images point to archetypes embedded deep within us. We recognize these stories because they resonate. They feel true before we can explain why. We accept that birds instinctively build nests and trees instinctively grow toward the light. It should not surprise us that human beings carry instinctive moral and symbolic knowledge as well. Patterns shaped over thousands of years of trial and error. The modern world trained many of us to distrust this inheritance. We were taught to privilege what can be measured over what can be intuited, what can be proven over what can be symbolized. But in doing so, we severed ourselves from the language that once shaped character. Stories formed conscience, tradition formed restraint, faith formed humility. Without those anchors, we are left with appetite, and appetite is never satisfied for long. The rot that many people sense in modern life is not merely political or technological, it is philosophical and spiritual. It is the slow erosion of meaning. It is the quiet replacement of transcendent purpose with immediate gratification. When meaning fades, people drift. They choose relationships that weaken them rather than strengthen them. They structure their lives around distractions rather than duties. They send their children into a culture that promises freedom but delivers confusion. None of this happened overnight, and none of it will be reversed by a clever slogan or a viral post. I no longer believe that argument alone can repair what has been lost. If meaning is to be recovered, it will be through a reawakening of story and faith, through rediscovering the old truths embedded in myth and religion, through acknowledging that there is a moral order greater than individual preference, through remembering that human beings are not self created beings, but participants in something older and larger than ourselves. The generations before us instinctively understood that there is a power beyond us, what I call God, and that aligning with that power gave structure and coherence to life. They accepted limits. They embraced roles. They found dignity in responsibility. We assumed we could improve on that inheritance without paying a cost. We were wrong. I do not claim to have all the answers. I am still wrestling with questions I once dismissed. I am still trying to understand ideas that earlier generations accepted without hesitation. But I am convinced of this: without meaning rooted in something transcendent, a culture cannot remain healthy. It may remain wealthy for a while, it may remain technologically advanced, but it will slowly hollow out. The unease so many people feel is not imaginary. It is the intuition that something essential has been misplaced. We can continue distracting ourselves from that intuition, or we can turn toward it. The treasure we are searching for will not be found in greater stimulation or louder argument. It will be found where human beings have always found it: in truth, in sacrifice, in story, and in our Creator. Without meaning, we're blind to the rot. With meaning, we may yet see clearly enough to rebuild.
If you'd like to get in touch with David, please send praise, money, and marriage proposals to davidmcelroy@mac.com. If you have a complaint or some other form of criticism, keep it to yourself.
This is Donald J. Trump, who, reliable sources tell me, is the greatest president of all time.
That knucklehead over there is an idiot, of course, but there's one thing we do agree about.
For once, you're right, Sleepy Joe. We agree that viewers should not follow this McElroy guy.
This guy's worse than you and me, Joe. Wait. I'm Joe. You're Barack. Or hold on, who are you?
Just shut up and take your meds, Joe. This McElroy guy's a dangerous loser. Don't listen to him.
Whatever you do, don't like his videos, don't follow his channel. Trust us instead.
He doesn't want you to listen to me, so he must be a loser. Gotta go now. He's coming back.